All right, Commanders faithful, it's grading time, and honestly, this one's a mixed bag. We've got a preseason loss in the books against the Detroit Lions, and it's time to hand out real report cards. Offense, defense, and the team as a whole. There's frustration in here, there's genuine excitement in here, and there's a rookie quarterback who might have just started a conversation that Washington fans need to be paying very close attention to. So if you're new to this channel, welcome to Commanders Focus. Smash that subscribe button right now because we are chasing 2,000 subscribers. And today's breakdown has a little bit of everything. Let's get into these grades. Let's start with the offense because there's a lot to unpack here. First things first, Jayden Daniels. He saw the field for exactly 3 snaps in this one. A sack, a throwaway, and a handoff. That's it. And honestly, be grateful for that. Detroit never got a clean shot to take him to the ground, and he's walking out of this game completely unscathed, fully ready to roll into that Week 1 matchup against Philadelphia. Was it a ton of playing time? No, but when you've got a talent like Jayden Daniels under center, the risk of extended preseason snaps simply isn't worth the reward. If this were a lower caliber quarterback, sure, you'd want to see multiple drives, get him settled into a rhythm. But this is Jayden Daniels we're talking about. There's real confidence that he can shake off any rust in a week or two of actual regular season football rather than needing to grind through extended preseason reps to get there. But the real headline from this offensive performance? The third-string rookie quarterback out of Rutgers absolutely balled out. 11 for 14 passing, 162 yards through the air, 0 sacks taken, and 0 interceptions thrown. This kid's got a genuinely big arm, and he is quietly starting to push the incumbent backup quarterback for that QB3 job. Now, to be fair, that incumbent backup had a perfectly fine day himself. A good, solid, unremarkable outing. But this rookie is forcing a real conversation about who deserves that third quarterback spot on the roster. Now, realistically, Washington is probably still keeping their veteran fourth quarterback option regardless of how this battle shakes out. But this rookie is making it clear that the incumbent backup might be getting a little too comfortable assuming that QB3 job is locked down. That's a storyline worth watching closely as the roster gets finalized. Now let's talk running backs, because this position group had a rough outing overall. One back carried a heavy workload, 10 carries for 30 yards, which, frankly, is starting to paint a pretty clear picture of what his role is going to be this season. A one-dimensional, short-yardage goal line churner. Nothing explosive, just tough, physical yardage in tight spaces. Meanwhile, the running back who was the breakout star of the very first preseason game had a genuinely brutal follow-up performance. 4 carries for -3 yards. You've got to feel for a guy who looked so good in Week 1 only to get completely shut down in Week 2. Hopefully he gets another real opportunity in the preseason finale to bounce back and show that first week wasn't a fluke. Now let's address what Washington fans are already treating as the boogeyman of this entire season, the offensive line. And look, I want to push back on the panic here a little bit. The starting group, even with some ongoing left tackle questions, looked genuinely fine to me. It was the backup units that really struggled against Detroit. One reserve lineman got bounced around between left tackle and right tackle and simply didn't have the foot speed to hold up out there, got beaten repeatedly in this game. Not a good showing at all. Another backup lined up at tackle when he's clearly, unmistakably a guard by trade. He actually moved pretty well in space out there, but if the experiment is testing whether he can handle tackle duties long term, the tape suggests he can't. The interior held up reasonably well in pass protection, but this isn't a big, physically dominant group that's going to consistently move bodies and create push in the run game, and that's exactly why the ground game struggled the way it did. The wide receiver room is honestly one of the most fascinating storylines on this entire roster right now. One rookie receiver was the clear MVP of this game. 3 catches for 41 yards on 3 targets, including a huge third down conversion that went for over 20 yards. This kid can legitimately play at this level, and that draft pick is looking better and better every single week. Beyond him, though, the rest of that receiver room is still very much a battle. Nobody else has really separated themselves yet for those final roster spots at receiver 4 and receiver 5. That said, one name stood out from the pack, a young receiver who put together a genuinely strong showing, highlighted by a spectacular one-handed catch and consistently good separation on his other targets. He's going to have a good film session after this one. He still has real ground to make up against some receivers in that room with more seniority and a bigger name, but nobody else showed quite as much on tape as he did in this game. So what's the actual grade for this offense? A C4 for 12 on third down, not good enough, plain and simple. But there were positives buried in there too. 45 plays run, averaging 5.4 yards per play, which is a genuinely respectable number. Only 2 sacks allowed compared to Detroit's 5, and honestly, that number alone should quiet some of the overreaction happening online about this offensive line being some kind of disaster unit. A lot of people watched one bad quarter and decided this line is going to be a problem all season long. That's premature. That said, this offense also got outrushed 35 yards to 169, which is not a great look, and they went 0 for 2 in the red zone, which is a real concern. All things considered, in the context of preseason football, a C feels fair. They moved the ball reasonably well, they didn't put many points on the board, and they lost the game. That's a C performance. Now let's flip to the defense, which grades out significantly better. Call it a B. Maybe a touch closer to a B- given the final result. There was a lot to genuinely like here. A cornerback who spent time with Detroit previously delivered an explosive early defensive play that set the tone. A rookie edge rusher had an up-and-down day overall, but he also delivered a huge hustle touchdown. Charging after a loose football and cashing in, that's exactly the kind of relentless effort you want to see rewarded. Now, there was also a costly read option touchdown given up where Detroit's backup quarterback essentially walked into the end zone untouched, and a lot of fans immediately pointed fingers at the rookie linebacker for that blown assignment. But looking at the actual play, that miss falls squarely on the edge defender, not the linebacker, if he had properly contained his gap responsibility. The quarterback likely never has the room to pull that ball and scamper into the end zone in the first place. There was more good news in the secondary, too. A young safety picked off a pass for the second straight preseason game. That's a real trend worth getting excited about. This defensive backfield has needed somebody who can consistently hawk the football and create turnovers. And this player looks like he could be emerging into exactly that role. The defense as a whole also held Detroit to just 110 passing yards, which is a genuinely strong number regardless of the fact that Detroit's backup quarterback isn't exactly an elite passer. As for the rookie linebacker specifically, don't expect his preseason usage to look anything like how he'll actually be deployed once the games start counting for real. Right now, it's heavy pass coverage, reading and tracking, not exactly letting him fly downhill and disrupt plays in the backfield the way the coaching staff ultimately envisions. This preseason stretch is fundamentally about drilling the basics against live competition, and on that front, he still looks solid, with genuinely high long-term upside. So where does that leave the team grade overall? Call it a C+, maybe a B- depending on how generously you want to round. And here's why that grade actually feels reasonable given the circumstances. This wasn't a blowout. Avoiding a total blowout in a preseason game matters more than people realize. Because a tight, competitive loss like this one allows a team to head back into practice and simply keep tweaking and improving rather than facing some kind of full teardown back to the drawing board moment. There were some real red flags mixed in, though. 11 penalties compared to Detroit's 7, simply not good enough. Good football teams get penalized less. That's just one of the unavoidable truths of this sport. On the flip side, Washington did win the turnover battle. 1 turnover committed compared to Detroit's 2, And winning that turnover battle is another one of those fundamental truths that tends to translate directly into winning football games over a full season. And then there's time of possession. Washington lost that battle by roughly 5 minutes, 27 minutes of possession compared to Detroit's 32. If you want to control a game and manage the clock effectively, you need to be able to hold on to the football, and that's an area that needs improvement. And hey, one more thing worth mentioning. The uniforms looked genuinely great out there. The refreshed look has a real classic feel to it, and honestly, that matters more than people give it credit for. With so many new faces on this roster still searching for a real team identity, looking like a competent, put-together franchise on the field goes a long way, even if it's a small, surface-level detail. So there you have it, a C+, B- performance in preseason Week 2. It's important to keep this in proper perspective and not treat it with the same level of overreaction we'll bring once the regular season actually kicks off. It could have gone better, sure, but it also could have gone a whole lot worse. That's the full report card for this one, Commanders fans. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment letting me know if you agree with these grades, and if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We are on a mission to hit 2,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching helps push us closer to that goal. We're going to be here all season long breaking down every single Commanders game. So don't miss a thing. Until next time, let's ride.